Hi, folks. Welcome into UnAnchored Boston. And as always, we're brought to you by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. And where? We're in New Hampshire, of course. And by the great George Gray, the big wheel, we call him at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. All right, the calendar is turned to September. Football season is here. Patriots, Boston College, lots of interest in both of them. But the Patriots are up first. And who better to have right out of the chute than the great Mike Reiss and the great Bob Lobel to do the formal introduction. Take it away, Robert.
Well, I asked Mike Reiss if he I actually begged him to come on. Uh, he is, of course, at ESPN and done a great job, and what a meteoric career he's had, and it's been well deserved. But I wanted to have him on so I could just utter the phrase, "We're on to Cincinnati." So we are on to Cincinnati on Sunday. It's hard to believe that we're here already. I know the first game is Thursday night and then it's Friday and blah, blah, blah. But no, we are on to Cincinnati, and Mike's going, you're going to go there, right? I mean, you're headed to Ohio.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's so many questions to ask you, right, Lynch? Let me start out. Now, I don't know if that's a proper introduction, but he allowed me to say we're on to Cincinnati, and I'm done with him today. So thanks, Mike, for coming by.
Yeah, that's great.
You probably stay in Kentucky, though, with the Marriott across the river, don't you?
That's exactly right. It's one of my favorite ones, Lynchy, on this trip when you can stay at a hotel and walk to the stadium. I love those. Indianapolis is another one. The Midwest ones seem to be like that, so that'll be a good one.
So you're in. People always wonder why the Cincinnati Airport symbol is CVG. That's because it's in Covington, Kentucky. Well, you walk across the bridge across the Ohio River, and you're in Ohio, Bob Lobel's home state, by the way, and you're in Cincinnati. So there we go.
I've spent many nights in Covington at the breweries there. They had Wiedemann's was one of their top beers, but there's a lot of beer, and the sheriff of Covington used to be an NFL quarterback. I think it was George Ratterman was the sheriff in Covington, but that's another story for another time.
Useless
information. No, I understand. So
we got Mike Reiss for a limited amount of time.
Okay.
Talking about Sheriff Andy Griffith or wherever he was in Covington in Kentucky.
George Ratterman. Come on, some people remember these people. Okay, here's the go. The question is, Mike, the whole Globe staff, with the exception of Shaughnessy, says 3 wins. Gasper says 5 wins. Everybody else says 4 wins. And the Globe staff. What do you say? And let's bring this up. What does ESPN say? What does Mike Reiss say?
So I would say 4. Sounds right to me. Last year, we know they were 4-13, and they're trying to build something new. And they've made some investments for the long term, but this is a short-term projection. And I think some of those long-term investments, I'm sure we'll talk about Drake May, the quarterback. We're not going to see him right away. So it's a building process that my take has been, this is going to take multiple years to get the roster to a point where that win total could grow to a higher number.
By the way, Lynch said 9 wins. I think, wasn't that your...
I got it right here. It's not that many. I think I had 8 wins.
That's just crazy. I mean, that is just, I'm sorry, but...
I know. There are some teams on there that aren't that good that they can beat. They can beat the Jets. They can beat Seattle, I think.
Not to go through this whole thing, the whole, schedule and everything else, because it's going to be one. First of all, we're on to Cincinnati. That's number one. And they're already 8-point underdogs in Cincinnati. I mean, that's as we move into the betting lines. So, Mike Reiss, what's their strength and what's their weakness?
So the strength would be the defense, but there's still concern with the defense to me for 3 reasons. 1, Bill Belichick isn't here anymore. And it's my belief that there was no one better at looking at an opponent and saying, this is how we need to play to beat this opponent. So they lose that brain power. Christian Barmore, defensive tackle, is out after being diagnosed with blood clots, and he was one of their best defenders and they traded Matthew Judon. So I'll tell you the defense is the strength, but in doing so, I want to acknowledge I don't think it's just snap the fingers and they're back to where they were last year. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. And I do think the running game has a chance to be a strength with Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. But with that comes a concern of, can the offensive line open up the holes and block for the running backs, which is something that remains to be seen.
Let me ask you this: if I'm a fan, I want to see the number 3 draft pick right away. I really I don't care how long it takes. Now I know I sound like a nut, but Chicago's going with the number 1 draft pick. Washington's going with the number 2 draft pick. Denver's going with Bo Nix. But Minnesota would have gone with J.J. McCarthy had he not gotten hurt. So why are the Patriots the only team that's not using their first-round pick and the number 3 pick in the draft? I know that it's to protect them and everything else, but why not let them play?
Yeah, it's fascinating discussion, Lynchy, because there are people that feel strongly like you do, like Tim Hasselbeck, who says the best way to learn is to play. And then there are others who feel strongly the other direction, that having a year to sit and learn behind the scenes is the greatest thing that can happen for a young quarterback. Tom Brady is someone that falls on that line of thinking. And obviously those aren't the only 2 people, but just giving you those examples. I think to me, every case is specific to the player. And Drake May just turned 22, and he only started 26 games at North Carolina. Like, the quarterbacks that we're talking about that were drafted this year have a lot more experience. Jaden Daniels started more than 50 games in his college career. Bo Nix, I think, started 61, and he's 24. So Drake was the youngest quarterback coming out, if I have my facts right, and he had the least experience. And so I think they're adopting a philosophy that you could do the most damage by putting him out there before he's ready. So let's just buy ourselves a little more time, however much time that is, and not make a catastrophic mistake that could ruin his career, maybe somewhat like we saw with like a Zach Wilson with the Jets, or even going way back like a David Carr with the Texans, who was the number 1 pick back in the late 90s. And that's their philosophy. Whether it's the right one or not, we'll find out, but I think that's their thinking.
Is it part of the Mac Jones hangover here as well?
That's the exact question I was going to ask.
Yeah. So
did you read my mind?
I love it. So the Mac Jones hangover, I mean, to me, his best year was as a rookie. So that would, if you want to mention Mac, to me, the case would be play Drake and handle it like you did with Mac in 2021 when they made the playoffs with Mac as the starter throughout the season. I think if there's a hangover, it's what they saw the last 2 years, where they didn't have the pieces around Mac to support him, both personnel-wise and coaching-wise. But I think they feel good with what they have coaching-wise around Drake and the system. Maybe there is a part of them that says, let's see what the offensive line looks like. Let's see how our pass catchers can uncover. That's part of not putting him out there too early and risking his development.
Do you think that was a Gerard Mayo decision, or do you think it was an organizational decision?
Organizational. I believe, like, ultimately Gerard's got to make the decision. He's the head coach.
When you say organizational, does that mean Robert Kraft or Jonathan Kraft?
I don't think so, Lobie. I think what I would say is Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, Ben McAdoo, the senior assistant, T.C. McCartney, the quarterback coach, and Elliot Wolf, the executive vice president of player personnel. To me, those are the experts that should know the answer. You hired them to know the answer to that question. And if you're going to overrule them, well, that's not healthy. And if that's what's happening, that would sound some alarms to me. And I don't believe that's what's happening. I think they're leaning on Alex Van Pelt, which is an interesting topic to me, guys. Like, he might work out as offensive coordinator, he might not. But he played quarterback at Pittsburgh. He was a record-setting quarterback in college. was a longtime backup to Jim Kelly. He's finally getting his chance as an offensive coordinator that calls the plays at 54 years old. And to me, some people look at that and say, well, this isn't a good sign. What took him so long to become a coordinator? I'm looking at it like, well, maybe this is like a good thing for the team, that someone who has a background at playing the position and has a lot of experience as a coordinator, however, not calling the plays, this might be something that the team actually lucked into, that he was available to them to have this position, and we'll see how it turns out.
I guess part of the problem in the preseason is you don't get to see your team against the first team of the other side, and so you really have no idea what you're walking into on Sunday afternoon. I think that's part of the fans' dilemma and part of the coaches' dilemma. They have no idea what they're going to be facing in the front line of Cincinnati. Nothing like they faced in the preseason.
Lobie, that front line, that defensive line of the Bengals, particularly the ends, Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, as good as the Patriots will see all year. And they have big question at left tackle, where Chukwuka Okorafor is probably going to start. And I just, I don't know about you guys. Like, I loved covering Bill Belichick, as tough as sometimes it was, because I learned so much about football from him. He would always say the first game of the year was the greatest unknown. And that's what gave him butterflies. Like, you can prepare as much as you can possibly prepare, but there's going to be something that happens that you didn't expect, and you have to be fluid and adjust on the sideline. And we'll see if this new coaching staff can do that. I mean, that's a big unknown too, right?
Yes, and which you bring up Belichick in the first game of the season, and I want to go right back to Mac Jones. And the prevailing thought is that Belichick was the one that brought down Mac Jones. I mean, that's in a general sense. I'm not giving you specifics, but you know what the general feeling is, that his handling of Mac Jones was the downfall of Mac Jones. But it really was, as you said, surrounding Mac Jones with offensive coordinators that really were not offensive coordinators, blah, blah, blah. And there were a lot of other things. But again, Belichick was ultimately responsible for that.
So I think he bears part of the responsibility, but I mean, I think if we're being honest, I think Mac himself, like, sometimes players are put in tough positions, and how you respond to that. I mean, I would defer to Lynchy. I mean, you played at a high level in college, and I'm sure there were times, Lynchy, when you were put in a position by a coach where you were like, I'm not sure, but you probably went along with it because you were a leader and a team player. And I think there were times that Mac probably would acknowledge he maybe could have responded differently himself. So I wouldn't just blame Belichick for it. I do think there's certainly some responsibility for him there, but I think there's a responsibility with Mac too, and so that's a tough one. That was unfortunate the way it unfolded I felt like for Bill Belichick and for Mac. And it felt like, to me, guys, it got personal at the end for Bill. Like, I don't know if you remember the last game, he made Mac the third quarterback for Nathan Rourke, who had joined the team like 3 weeks before. And that's sort of when I knew, like, not that, I mean, that was a sign that it had really gone off the rails.
Let me ask you this, Mike. What's it going to be like with the crowd? Are they going to have the same patience that the organization is going to have? Is Jacoby, every time Jacoby Brissett throws a pick, are they going to boo the hell out of him and start the chants, we want May, we want May? I mean, what's it going to be like?
Well, maybe we use preseason Lynchy as an example. When they put Drake May in the first game and he played one series and Bailey Zappi came in the game, they were booing Bailey Zappi. Now, maybe they weren't booing Bailey Zappi as much as a decision because they wanted to see Drake May. So maybe that's a preview for the topic. And it's understandable. I also think, I like, we can talk about this, like 1993 was really the season that I'm using as sort of a little bit of a comparison. Parcells' first year as coach, Bledsoe played as the number one pick. they were 5-11, but by the end of the year, I think fans were pretty fired up for where it was headed. I think they won 4 in a row by the end of the year. And I sort of look at that as this year. Like if by the end of the year there's signs that it's going in that direction, I think fans would be pretty pleased by that.
Going this direction with Drake May or with Jacoby Brissett?
Probably part of that is like, how does Jacoby play? But let's just say with Drake May, like you figure at some point he's probably going to be in there, whether it's by injury or decision. And if he's improving and going in that direction, that would be my thought on that. What do you guys think? Do you think we'll see him this year?
Answer this. Is that going to be a weekly question from the press conferences?
Mike, are you going to have to go into every post game and say who's your quarterback next week?
Oh man, well I live that, right?
Yeah, you live that.
In that was like 2020 with Cam Newton. I remember that, and Bill got upset with me one time, and he goes something along the lines of, "Why don't we do this? Why don't I just tell you when I'm going to make a change? Cam is our quarterback." But I think it'll be a question if Jacoby doesn't play well, and I think I'm respectfully leaving open the possibility that he plays at a level that keeps him competitive. But if he doesn't, we know that it's close, right? Like Gerard Mayo told us, the competition was close at the end. So I think it's a natural question if Jacoby doesn't play at a high level.
I don't want to revisit history here, and it's not ancient history; it's recent history.
Right?
But I will. So,
of course.
I know you're the leader, the team leader, and team player. So it's all right. You're leader, team player. I got it written down here. Mike said you were.
Am I wrong, Lynchy? Like,
what are you asking him for? What's he going to say? No,
tell me the truth.
I'm a team player. I'm not.
You would absolutely. You are, Lobel.
I'm just saying. Now I forget what I was going to ask. Oh,
the best.
Why did they hire Gerard Mayo and not Mike Vrabel?
Vrabel, yeah.
Why not Vrabel?
Yeah. So I think this was a case where ownership, Robert Kraft, felt like Gerard Mayo was the right coach for this generation of players, and he was worried that if he didn't put succession language in his contract, that he was going to lose him to another team. And I think that's the long answer short. The nuance to it is I don't think they felt like the change was going to happen this quickly. Like I don't think they were expecting 4-13 last year under Bill Belichick. I think the plan was Bill Belichick is still here, coaching, gets the record for all-time wins as Patriots coach, and then ultimately they'll turn it over to Gerard Mayo whenever Bill's ready to step aside. So I think that was the plan. It didn't happen, but because of the concern that ownership had that they would lose Gerard Mayo if they didn't put that language in his contract, that's why it's Gerard Mayo instead of Mike Vrabel.
How do you think he's done in so far? There has been confusion at times. There has been indecision at times. Maybe it's part of the learning curve that he's on. But how would you rate the way Gerard Mayo has opened up?
Yeah, Lobel, it's a hard question to answer because they haven't played any games. Like if they get the doors blown off on Sunday, 41-3, well, you know what I mean? My answer is going to be dictated by the results, by what it looks like. All I can judge it by now is sort of what I'm experiencing in very small snippets of the culture within the locker room. So I go talk to leaders like David Andrews, Devon Godchow, Dietrich Wise Jr., and try to get a feel for what's going on here. They feel like they have a chance to build something with Gerard Mayo's approach. It's new to me in the sense of it's like his approach as a coach is to build connection with players, show them that he cares about them, and then demand from them, versus the Belichick approach, which was very successful for 20 years, which was a little more authoritative. Hey, this is what we're doing. Let's go do it. We don't need to get into necessarily feelings, relations. Like, we got a job to do. Let's go do it. And so to me, that's the whole story here is we're going to find out if this calculation of this is the type of coach and approach that we think fits today's player was the right decision. And that's sort of what I think we'll all see.
You know what it reminds me of, and I'm sure you've heard this a number of times, is what the Red Sox did with Butch Hobson. You know, someone else is he's going to be a hot commodity. Someone else is going to grab him. We better sign him. We better promote him right now as our manager. And are they doing the same thing with Gerard Mayo?
Possible, Lynchy. It's possible. And I think for me, like, I am just committed to seeing what it looks like, because I am now 49 years old, and I would say I probably respond to a coach like Bill Belichick. And I've also seen and experienced the success of how that works. But I also have kids, teenagers, who that probably isn't the type of coach that they would respond to. It's a different generation. And so I'm trying to keep myself an open mind and give it a chance to play out before I can answer that question. It's a fair question. I just think I want to see what it looks like before I kill it, or before I praise it.
Yeah. That certainly is fair enough.
How is it possible that they left the offensive line get to the place it's at when it's widely believed that one of the key components to any winning football team is their offensive line?
Yeah.
The pass protection and run blocking. How could the offensive line have deteriorated to the point that it's at right now?
So, Lobie, we're going to turn on the game 1 o'clock on Sunday, and the Bengals are going to have a starting center named Ted Karras. So I'll start with that. He should be playing for the Patriots. He was drafted by the Patriots in 2016. So it's decisions like that. We're going to turn on the game Thursday night. Chiefs hosting the Ravens. Joe Thuney is going to be playing left guard for the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Chiefs. He should be playing for the Patriots. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2016. So start with that. They letting their own players go. Now that's the prior regime. And then fast forward to this offseason. Did they do enough? It's a fair question. They did draft one in the 3rd round. They drafted a guard in the 4th round. They signed Chuks Okorafor as a free agent. They re-signed Mike Onwenu to a big money deal. So they're making an effort. But I guess my thought is maybe they could have done a little more, but they also had needs at quarterback, receiver. It's hard to do it all in one offseason. Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for the Patriots, because they don't make all the right decisions, but just more I think that's the dynamic that's in play.
Well, how did, refresh me, because you're a great historian as well as a modern day reporter. How did Karras and Thuney leave? Why did they go? Oh. What was the deal going on at the time?
Well, so start with Karras. He actually left, went to Miami, came back for a year, and then it was a negotiation with the prior regime that didn't go. They didn't value him as much as the Bengals is probably the answer. And then Thuney was a franchise player, so he was making $15 million a year back in 2019, if I remember, 2020, and then gets to unrestricted free agency. And again, the prior regime and the Chiefs were willing to pay him more. So that was one where the prior regime didn't value those players as much as the other teams, but it should have never got to that point. Would be my point.
What about the line that Belichick gave to I think it was Pat McAfee the other day about signing players? Massachusetts. Did that ever come up in any negotiations because of there's a tax here in Massachusetts as opposed to Florida, Nevada, and whatever states that don't have income tax?
So I think I appreciate that Bill Belichick's doing all this media stuff, because I love his insight. He never mentioned that to us. I think it was a conversation with agents like, hey, we need you to come in a little higher because the net is going to be lower, if he's with another team. So, but I don't think that was a huge factor in like them losing players. Like ultimately, if you got to offer a little more, you offer a little more. It's how you value the player, and Belichick was, for better or worse, was great at setting a number and not losing the discipline to go beyond it. And I think sometimes those decisions worked out. And like in the case of Karras and Tooney, in my opinion, that was one where it didn't work out for him.
Well, Belichick is a great coach, great defensive coach, may have not have been the greatest general manager. I mean, you can't be all things to all people.
So my thing on that, Lobie, is I don't really want to bang him on the way out. Like, he did so many great things for the organization. I do think like the last couple years, like some of the decisions with the coaching staff on offense and the personnel were regrettable, but for the better part of 2 decades, he was aces and everything runs its course. And that's sort of my thought on that.
That's fair. And I think it's very fair, Mike.
Oh, it is.
And I would say, forget Massachusetts. This traffic was much more of a problem than the taxes around here.
I love it.
Oh, well, since we touched on Belichick, can you believe like how he's everywhere? I mean, he's like dog crap. I mean, you can't step someplace without stepping on Bill Belichick, and now he's on InstaFace. What do you call it? Instagram. He already has like 200,000 followers, I think.
Yeah. Well, so my feeling, Lynchy, is like it's a better NFL with Bill Belichick involved in it.
You're right, Mike. You're right.
And I love his insight on the game. I do think, like he used to joke about the media stuff. I don't know how you guys feel. Like I worry sometimes like about overdoing it. Like you don't want to be in so many places that what you're saying gets watered down and so that would be one thing. But I think for him, I look at it like I'd like to see him get that all-time record for coaching because I think he's devoted his life to the game and he deserves it. And I think this is a way to keep himself front and center in the eyes of like 32 owners or, however you want to say it, that when an opportunity presents itself, hopefully they don't forget about him and he shows like, hey, I'm still current with the game. And I know, guys, like he literally is. Like if you ask him about any team, he's going to be able to tell you their depth chart like right now, which to me is like amazing. He literally lives this stuff. It's who he is. And it's part of what I miss, not having him around.
Mike, that fifth quarter was must-watch TV. And there was a reason for that. As you know, you stood there and then took the slings and arrows that he threw. I mean, some guys had to do it, but you guys were the pawns, and we were the pawns. He was the chess master. And I don't care what you say. I think it was much more of a shtick and contrived than anything else, because it was, as Lynch and I both have talked, that is must-watch TV. And the ratings for that show are going to dive like a submarine after this year, because who's going to watch the post game when Belichick's not there?
Yep. And I think I used to, just so I don't know how you felt when you were doing it.
I never went into that. I didn't go into there.
I mean, I always felt like this, like massive responsibility to like ask a question.
Yes,
fans would want to know, knowing that I was about to like,
You did. You were the sacrificial lamb. You were one of the big ones, right?
So Ali, the rope-a-dope,
right.
You're going to get pounded.
I would write it down in my notebook, and so I would try to, if I had to just look down, if I didn't have like the same, courage of my convictions that day. And sometimes it would happen so fast. You're running from the press box to get down there, and he comes out and there's that awkward silence after his first opening statement of, we just got to play better. We got to coach better. And then there's the awkward silence and it's like, I guess this is where I have to jump in, Oh.
What about you were one of the guys that he respected, but you were also not immune from a death stare. And when you got a death stare, I mean, I don't care how long you've been around. It's intimidating, isn't it?
Oh my God, it is. It is. I mean, even last year, Lynchy, like, so they played the Chargers. If I remember off the top of my head, they lost 6-0, and it was a very frustrating game. Bailey Zappi was the quarterback, and I remember thinking to myself, like, so we get these press passes, and I always feel like this is for the followers of the team. Like, if you don't ask the question that they would ask,
Yeah.
you're not doing your job. And I remember going down there and being like, we got to ask about the offense. Like, and what has happened for the offense to be that bad? And I think I remember saying something like, what's happened to the offense? And I got to stare, Lynchy. Like, and it was a little bit of a back and forth. And I'm not going to lie to you, like, the heart's beating a little heavier, because it's like, ultimately, like, I felt like the fans needed to hear from him, like, how did it get to this point? And
Yep.
he was hard on me after it, but I felt like it was healthy in the sense of those who are following the team need to know that you're working for them.
Yep.
Like, you're asking the question that they want to know. And Bill didn't answer it at that time. And I think at that point, he probably knew where the whole thing was headed.
Yeah.
And that's what made last year at the end pretty tough.
Yeah, it was. I felt at some point last year, probably the last quarter of the season, I felt bad for Bill. I used to cringe at that when they'd send some intrepid reporter that had never been there before. Hey, I'm going to get him to answer the question, and the answer to the question, I said, oh no, here comes the death stare, here comes, But then it became, I felt bad for him because it looked like it was everybody against him.
Yeah. And the shame on that, Lynchy, is that my perception of it was that he was giving, everything he had, like 18, 19-hour days. And I might be wrong on that, but when someone, and for 24 years, what he had given of himself to create this, I just felt like endings are hard, and like they're just like showing a respect for him and everything he had put into it, as you balance like this frustration over it really went sideways, in part because of some of the decisions that he made, so it was tough. It was tough.
So Mike, I got this, I'm going to hammer on this question until I finally get an answer.
Yeah.
And it's about Adam Vinatieri.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Lynchy, if this is boring, but I want to know where the hell
Why would you say that?
Well, because I bring it up every show.
I'm bored. Do you think when you ask a question, I'm bored?
Well, it's possible.
This is not like, the year 1995 when I watched Channel 4 and you asked a boring question. This is different now. We're buddies. We're teammates.
Okay. All right. I take it back. Mike Reiss, where the hell's Vinatieri been? Why wasn't he there for the Tom Brady Hall of Fame thing? Where he's been in absentia, and I don't understand it. I mean, of all the guys that had a chance to be involved with the Tom Brady worship train, Vinatieri should have been right up there in the locomotive because of the way, of what he did. I know he went to the Colts, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. Yeah. But that's not the point. It's what he did when he was here.
Good question. I will find the answer and get it to you. I do think he was back last year. So it's not like the type of thing where he doesn't want to be here. If you remember, he's like Jack now, Lobel. But I think I'm going to assume, and I probably shouldn't do this, he has kids and he's out in maybe the Dakotas. And so I'm going to guess that that's part of it. but let me find out for
They do
sure.
have planes, don't they? Go to the Dakotas, don't they?
They do. They do. They do.
I
And he's
mean,
been.
I could be.
I'll find out. I'll find out. Yeah, I'm guessing it was something personal. I don't think it was anything like personal. Like I don't want to be here. But let me. I'll find out for
I
you.
just think he was missing. I think
Well,
people realize what a contribution Vinatieri made to this whole dynasty thing.
Well, and Lobie, there were others too that I would put in that category that were missing. Like I was Mike Vrabel. I don't know if he was he there. I don't. He might have not made it back, but he might have been busy coaching. Like, so there were some others that I would put in the same category. But certainly, like when, I mean, I don't think Brady has 6 rings without Adam. So I'm with you.
Who was available in the
7 rings, I should say.
No, I got you. But in the first one, in the game against the Raiders, in that the key moment of the whole dynasty was that start was the fumble recovery, and then Vinatieri came up huge in that. Well, by the way, all right, let's go to camping first. All right, maybe it's up in North Dakota camping. I mean, can I do this right now?
I look bored, Lou. You've been talking, and you thought I'd be bored.
I did. Are you?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, I'm trying to go into camping, and I think this is really going to get your attention. What are you looking at your watch for?
Because Mike has been gracious to give us enough time, and I'm not going to run through a red light or a stop sign like you might, and I'm going to let him go and do his job.
Night. Okay, all right. Leader, team player, where is that? I feel like I came back to the huddle, and you're saying, why didn't you block the right guard? Well, because I didn't go to Harvard. That's why I didn't block your right guard, Mike. Campers, are you ready to see what's new in 2025? Well, Cold Springs RV is next year's models, and they're arriving daily. And Mike Reiss, Mike's going to have another question for you, so be prepared. So go check out the latest in pop-ups, travel trailers, fifth wheelers, and motorhomes. Tell them Bob Lobel and Mike Lynch sent you, or Mike Lynch or Bob Lobel, whatever order you want to put it in. At Cold Springs RV, the doors are always open, and you can freely browse. And if you want to see the latest in camping, get to Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. Or learn more online at coldspringsrv.com. I know a guy that has a camper in Raymond, New Hampshire. He was there by himself. The next door neighbor was a very attractive woman in her camper, and they ended up being happy campers. So that's coldspringsrv.com. This too can happen to you. Thank you very much for your attention and perseverance. And now, Mike, you can ask the question, which I'm sure is going to be.
Well, I know Mike has been asked this question before. We don't pay our guests, but when they finally build this Lobie Lynchy cruiser, like the Madden cruiser, you're going to get to take it cross country, and we'll fly you back. The only condition is you have to take one expatriate with you. It could be from someone from a generation ago. It could be someone that played in the 60s or 70s, or it could be someone that's playing right now or recently retired. But you, Mike Reiss, got to bring one expatriate player with you to ride shotgun cross country. Who would it be?
Mm-hmm. How disappointed will both of you be if I say Tom Brady? Because it's the obvious answer. Do I need to give you a non-Tom answer?
No.
Okay.
But
why?
What have you not asked Tom, and what do you want to learn?
I want to talk about how do I say this? Like, I think covering Tom was amazing because of obviously the player he was, and how clutch he was. But I think what I admired, guys, and we would talk about it a little bit more toward the end of his career, was like the person. So I'll give you an example. He had said on a radio interview, like a book had a profound impact on his life. It was called The 4 Agreements by Miguel Don Ruiz, if I have the name right. And so I go out, I get the book, I start flipping through it, and I'm like, this is like deep. And have a conversation with him at his locker, like, what's this all about? And like, there's so many stories like that I would love to just dive into with more time.
Yeah.
And I just I think he really wanted to be like the best player, the best dad, the best husband. Like I just thought he was a really unique person, in addition to like the great player. And I just would love to like get deeper into that.
That's interesting.
It
Wow.
it is. And like so like Lynchy, like this book, and I wish I had it off the top of my head, but it's like how to live your life by like these 4 simple agreements, and like your life you'll be free. And it was like number 1 was be impeccable with your word. Like don't say anything that you don't believe. Like another one was like don't take anything personally, like which is really hard to do, especially in like social media. But the idea being like what someone else says isn't a reflection on you. It's really a reflection of their reality. And the faster you can realize that, like the better your life will be. Don't make assumptions. You might think someone is thinking something, but be straightforward and ask them, like, so, you have, I think that was one. And then the last one was like, just always do your best. And like, your best is sometimes not going to be what it is, one day to the next, because of other things might be going on. But if you can always just try to hit that, like, and so it's so simple, Lynchy, and like we talked about it, and I'm like, but I would like to talk about it on a ride across the country and how that helped him elevate right to the highest of highest levels.
It almost sounds like a miniature version of John Wooden's pyramids for success to me.
I love that. Yeah.
That's
and
what it sounds like.
and he had quoted
That'd
John
be
Wooden at
John
that Patriots Hall of
Donnelly,
Fame.
Lou Alcindor, Bill Walton. Would that be his pyramid for success?
No, he had a pyramid of success that says be quick, but don't hurry. Don't mistake accomplishment for achievement. And there were little phrases like that. And there was this pyramid of success. It's pretty cool.
Go to Harvard when you don't want to go to Yale, something like that.
I want to try to find one thing that Brady had said in his speech where he quoted Wooden, but Lynchy, like I would just say, like part of the joy for me in doing this is being around these people who are the best at what they do. And like Belichick, we talked about him. Like I really love covering. Like we talked about, I love covering him. He's one of the best coaches to ever do this, if not the best. Brady, same thing. And so just to hit, if we could ever get on that level, like I feel like it would almost make you as a person better, to talk about that. And
Thinking about writing a book, Mike? I'm serious here.
I don't think I could do it, Lobie.
Why do you say that?
It's so hard to write a book.
But you're so plugged in and so young yet. You got so many miles to go before you sleep.
So I know my kids are 15 and 12, and I feel like every minute I'm not working, I just want to be with them. And you know what I mean? Like and this job's hard. Like social media has changed a lot with the job. Yeah. And so I think maybe down the line, like that could be something, but it feels like really far away.
When they hired Raymond Berry and they fired Ron Meyer, I remember like you guys had I don't know if you were working then, but your Patriots newspaper, you were in a coat closet.
That's right.
Across the hall.
That's right.
I got in touch with the station by putting a dime in the payphone. And that's how much things have changed.
That's right. So I had two thoughts. You mentioned John Wooden, Lobie. So Brady in his Hall of Fame speech, which by the way I thought was one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard, but I might be going from like just the feeling. But he said, as the great John Wooden said, happiness begins where selfishness ends. I love that, and I think that's sort of, so that I want to mention. And then I want to show you mentioned your phone. We talked about this, right? Like sometimes ESPN will be like, we need you to go on TV, and I'll have this phone, and then I'll have this phone, and I hook up the earpiece to this phone, put it in my pocket. I'm on a tripod with, let's see if I don't have my microphones with me, and I'll literally go on with this. And that, so I'll bring that to Cincinnati on Sunday, just in case something happens to Jacoby Brissett, and Drake May comes in, and I know if that happens, ESPN is going to expect me to be ready to go.
Yeah, during the
And
game.
during the game, after the game, the next morning, like that, and that's the world we're in now.
Yeah.
We got to let you go really soon, but I have to, one quick. You mentioned Belichick's how he referenced the first game of the season, and what did you say about that?
So most unpredictable game of the year.
Okay, and that gives me a chance to bring up Boston College and the great win they had Saturday. And I didn't want to let this go by the boards without talking about Bill O'Brien and the winner. Now Florida State, I don't know, they looked totally outmanned on Saturday.
Yeah,
totally beaten on Saturday, and for a top 10 team to be 0-2, it's not a good look for that coach. But anyway, what a win for Boston College.
For me, I got so excited for multiple reasons. Personal connection to Bill O'Brien. Like, I'm so happy for him after everything he's been through. To have his tenure start off like that. His wife, Colleen, who went to BC, so it means so much to them. She was at the game with their son, Michael, who's a sophomore at Tufts, which means a lot because it's not easy for Colleen to do that with how she takes care of their son, Jack. We know the history. And so to me, everything about that, and this is what I love. I love football. I love team building. And you're right, Lobie. Florida State might not be any good, but to go down there on a Monday night, national TV in those weather conditions, and to have one penalty. I don't care how good the other team is. You had one penalty. And then to dominate the line of scrimmage, right? 0 turnovers. And to dominate, it validated to me what winning football should look like.
Yep.
And so, I don't know. And Lynchy, do you get excited over BC, or is it hard with Harvard?
All 3 of my daughters went to BC. And, Barry Gallup is a good friend of mine. Tom Coughlin was there. And so I do have an affinity for Boston College. And I voice dictated. I said, afterwards I tweeted, I wrote EC instead of BC, because I was voice dictating. But I was so excited. I almost had tears coming down my eyes for all the reasons you just mentioned. And he's such a good guy. And he's right where he wants to be. And he's home. And he's got his family around him, and it's just terrific.
I love this game, guys. And it does. And part of me wishes I played. My son is playing now. He's trying it for the first time. He's 12, and I see the benefits he's getting out of it. Tackle football, and I just think they came together as a team. There's something about that, and the game itself when it's played like that. I just think it's beautiful to watch.
Let me get one more quick commercial, and Mike, before we let you go, all right?
Definitely, absolutely.
If you're thinking about a new vehicle, go where Lobie and Lynchy go. Go see our good friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We've been customers for years because we know that George Gray and his staff will treat you right. I was there for an oil change last week and had a great time. They're a family-owned and operated dealership that we trust, and you can trust as well. So go see the big wheel, we call him, the great George Gray at Lexington Toyota. George is a big fan of the Patriots. He's a big fan of Boston College and all sports, and just walk around the place, and George is always there, and say hi to him. Tell him Lobie and Lynch sent you. Well, Mike, this was great. I certainly appreciate it.
Very metaphysical today. This was very
10:29. We told him we get him out here by 10:30. 10:29.
What is the picture on that? Oh, that's your daughter.
That's one of my granddaughters. Yeah. But 10:29. We got Reiss off, and say hi to your dad for us, by the way. One of the great sportscasters of all time, contemporary with Lobie and myself, and no finer gentleman ever graced this business and any other business. Say hi to him for us.
I definitely will say hello, and I know I always tell you guys this when we do this, but how much I respect and appreciate both of you for everything that you did for me personally. Bob putting me on the sports final in those big chairs where I'm like, I gotta move forward. If I sit back, my feet are dangling off the floor, and just that was the start. And Lynchy, literally growing up Friday nights, 6 o'clock. I would be there, Channel 5, to see the high five, right?
Oh,
That was
right.
Friday. It was Friday night, right?
Yeah.
And just like watch you. And we talked about how you spoke at my Babe Ruth banquet with like, and so just like tremendous admiration and appreciation for both of you.
Oh, we appreciate it. Certainly appreciate it. We appreciate you coming on because I know it's
Thanks a lot. On to Cincinnati.
On to Cincinnati. Mike Reiss, thanks so much. And folks, don't forget to follow us on unanchoredboston.com.